Happy Monday. It's always a happy Monday, isn't it? We all get to head back to work. That's fun. Hey, Josh Johnson here. It is so great to be with you on this Monday morning, a little after 11 o'clock at the time of this analysis. We're going to cover a lot today. We've got a lengthy stretch of warm, dry weather. The drought is going to get worse before it gets better. And then the pattern shifts around the middle of March to a colder, stormier, and more active pattern that may help with the drought, but may bring us some severe weather chances along the way as well. It's way too early to dive into any sort of specifics on that thread, but just know it is something that, the calendar tells us, pattern recognition tells us, okay, these are some possibilities, right? So let's dive into those possibilities. So we'll begin with the GFS this morning. You have a winter storm in progress, heavy snow accumulations across the higher elevations of West Virginia, Northern Virginia, Southern Pennsylvania, and parts of Maryland. Winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories in effect there. Mainly the winter storm warnings are up in the mountains, the winter weather advisories down in the valley locations. Pardon me. That system kicks on out of here pretty quick. And then we have kind of a lengthy period here of just warm, dry weather. As the kind of battle zone here, there's a stalled frontal boundary that lifts up into the Ohio Valley. That will likely create some rain and some thunderstorms to our northwest, but we don't see any sort of severe weather threat for us here in Alabama out of that. That will all stay north of here. We'll put a chance of a sprinkle or shower in there for Friday. Moisture return for an area of surface low pressure that gets cranked up over northwest Kansas. That warm air advection could lead to enough what's called isotropic lift to where you get a few of these scattered sort of nuisance showers and thunderstorms. It's not severe weather. It's not heavy rain. It's not widespread rain. But anytime you get a 994 along the Kansas-Nebraska border, someone's going to get clobbered with snow this time of year, and that someone is probably parts of Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, Colorado. They need it, right? It's been a pretty dry winter out there. This could be a pretty significant severe weather episode for parts of Oklahoma, Missouri, and Arkansas. I encourage you to find your local reputable meteorologist if you live in those spots, and they can do a little better analysis than I can for that. I'm a big believer in stick with your area, right? I'm just giving you the broad brush look here. If you live in those areas and need details, find a good local meteorologist and follow their stuff. Okay, so that system zips on into southeastern Canada by Saturday evening, and then what's left of it sags south. This is where the models begin to sort of diverge, is on Saturday night into Sunday. Cutoff low back here, and look, I'll tell you straight up, these things are a nightmare in terms of when does it eject, how strong is it? The models are terrible at this. So I don't put a lot of stock in any specific idea for Saturday, Sunday, Monday at this point. If this thing's more progressive and kicks on out, then you'd spawn a new surface low and you get a bunch of heavy rain and maybe a few strong storms. Or it could hang back to the west and you could have only light rain in Alabama. So the weekend forecast right now, clear as mud, is the honest appraisal there. And what I'll do here while I'm in this, I will pop over to the Euro from last night and show you that. It gets close, the 6C run gets close to being out far enough. You see it here. It is a little more progressive, or a little slower with that cutoff low back here. And this idea, this only goes out through Saturday night, would be the surface low hangs back west. Most of Saturday is dry, a few nuisance showers, not a big deal. And then maybe some stronger storms on Sunday if and when this cutoff upper low finally begins to pop out back to the east. Sometimes these hang back and you get day after day of rain. Sometimes they eject on out and they're pretty progressive and you get a surface low that forms over Texas, moves to the Ohio Valley, and that can be a storm setup, right? Okay, so then I want to get into what happens after that. First, let me show you this. This is the Storm Prediction Center's kind of extended outlook for days 4 through 8. There's day 4 right there. That's that kind of midweek system I was telling you about. Then they've got a day 5 risk up here into the Red River Valley on up towards Kansas City. Day 6 back into Texas. Again, it doesn't really move much because the culprit for it is a cutoff upper low that meanders around the Baja Peninsula back here of Mexico for a few days. So does this eject on towards the east? You know, their words are better than mine. Predictability too low. Yeah, that's their phrase. Yeah, that's right. Because of the model differences in handling that cutoff low, there's really not a lot of kind of faith, trust, and confidence in any specific idea for strong storms Saturday, Sunday, Monday. But just know it's a time frame we're watching. That could end with anything from day after day of just rain to some strong storms to very little to no rain at all. So I'm not being intentionally vague. I'm just giving you a common sense, no hype, honest appraisal of what the data shows. That's not good news because of this map. Check it out. This is the drought monitor from the federal government here. And yeah, we're still in some trouble, aren't we? This shows D3 extreme drought covering much of Macon, Lee, Russell, northern Bullock. And look, I know a lot of you, I've heard from a lot of you about, well, this can't be. The ground's wet where I live. Look, that may be true. That probably is true. You know your yard better than some guy that works for the government that draws this map. You know it better than I do. But when they draw this map, they're not looking at, is your yard wet? They're looking at how deep does the moisture go down into the soil? What is this going to look like in 3 days, in a week, in a month, right? So understand that it's not just as simple as, oh, I've got some mud puddles in my yard, we must not be in a drought. Mud puddles in your yard don't last very long, and frankly will depend on the water table and the depth of soil moisture and all these complicated factors. So look, this map is not gospel, but it is a pretty good approximation, and South and Southeast Alabama especially are in a pretty rough spot with drought. So we need the pattern to change. And what do you know? It's going to. Let me show you this map. This is the European kind of AI. This is the AI version of the Euro. Basically, a lot of machine learning goes into this, right? And I know we're all a little skeptical of the AI phrasing, but just understand this is a pretty good model. This model does pretty well. Essentially, it takes the European output and applies past weather things. When we had a pattern that looked like this in the past, what happened 3 days later? That's the sort of thing. Meteorologists have been doing this for you behind the scenes for many years. This machine learning version of the European model is just doing it using a lot more. We do it anecdotally, right? We remember things. The computer's doing it statistically and analytically. So it's not perfect, right? If the model's wrong, then what happened 3 days later in the past won't help you much. But it does at least give us a pretty good picture of the broader pattern. I don't use this very much to nail down specifics on a system, but I do use it quite a bit to get into kind of the broader look to the pattern. So let me share it with you. What I've done here, these are the 850 millibar temperature anomalies. Notice it is such a warm week across almost all of the continental United States. This is valid Tuesday at noon, and we are near normal in parts of Florida. We are near normal in southwest Kansas with rain and storms falling, and that's it. Everyone else in the entire continental United States is near or above normal. So this is a huge warm-up. We're talking highs in the 70s and 80s, lows in the 50s for most of the week ahead. This is just going to be a lengthy stretch of warm, dry weather across most of the southeastern part of the country. But it doesn't last forever. Let's fast forward here. So then we get out to the weekend. Still very warm. The big cross right there, that's right over Alabama. It's still very, very warm. But notice that cutoff upper low, that's bringing some cold air back across parts of Mexico. And then watch, out in the very long range, look at that. We get a major shot of cold air. This would be out towards the 12th, 13th, 14th of March. So towards the middle of the month. And my suspicion is when you see a map that looks like this, there's probably some strong storms in that mix. Anytime you've got this much warm air ahead of a system and this much cold air behind the system and the calendar says March, that should trigger some alarm bells in your head if you're a meteorologist. And that's what it does with us, right? As in me specifically. This is not a specific prediction of severe weather, rather. This is just sort of, you need to be paying attention towards the middle of March because we're seeing things in the data that historically would trigger some alarm bells, right? Have a weather radio, have multiple reliable ways of getting weather warnings, plan ahead of time where you'll go if there's a tornado. That's great advice no matter what. You live in Alabama. We're the #1 state in America in tornado deaths per capita. So whether we have storms in the middle of March, middle of April, next April, just go ahead and get ready. That way you don't have to worry about it anymore. You don't have to message me, hey, is it safe to go to sleep? If you have a weather radio and a good weather app and a plan for where you'll go if there's bad weather, you can go to sleep anytime, right? Because the weather radio will wake you up and you can get to that safe spot. Okay, so, and the raw data here suggests potentially another shot of cold out towards March the 14th and 15th. Huh, how about that? So, how cold would this be? Depends on which model you believe. This is the European Ensemble, and I will blow this up and make it a little larger for you so it's easier to see, and we'll do some analysis on it. Now, remember, the ensemble is the choir. I show you what's called a deterministic model. That is an individual singer. That is the soloist. You are going to hear more details in the soloist voice, right? When you're listening to someone sing at church or at a concert, if it's just one person singing, you can hear every little detail. But you're more vulnerable to some mistakes. If they miss a note, if they forget a lyric, you hear it. If it's a choir singing, which is what an ensemble is, the ensemble is many, many voices. The choir, right? You will not hear as many details. Extreme weather events will tend to get over-smoothed, but this gives us sort of a general idea of the picture. We like to use these especially beyond 5 days. So days 5 through 15, these are pretty good. Okay, is it going to be warmer than normal, colder than normal? I don't get wound up about the specific numbers, and you shouldn't either, and I'll explain why in a minute, but that's how this goes. So remember, deterministic model runs are an individual singer, and ensemble computers are a choir. That's a lot of singers. Okay, so the European Ensemble has 50 members in it, with 50 singers. Essentially, we take the European computer model and run it. That's called the deterministic run. That's the operational run. Then we tweak something and run it again. Then we tweak a different thing and run it a third time. And then we tweak something else and run it yet a fourth time and a fifth time, on up to 50 times. Then we average all those together. And what I look at, and what you should look at, is this kind of green line. That's the ensemble mean. Average all of them together. Notice it is warm through Wednesday, March 11th, perhaps very warm. Highs in the upper 70s and low 80s, lows in the 50s and 60s. Then, big change. We go actually below normal in temperatures out towards, again, March 12th, 13th, 14th, and perhaps even into the 15th. The European Ensemble not as bullish with that specific idea of a second cold shot, but that's all so far out in time. I don't want you to focus on specifics. I want you to focus on this idea. It is warmer than normal through March 11th, and then after March 11th, it is likely going to turn colder and potentially much colder. And these numbers, so what happens here, when we see, and we have excellent model agreement in this idea, by the way, not just model agreement, but teleconnections, what's happening around the world, all ends up relating back to our local weather. We have a lot of different pieces of data we can look at to sort of make this determination. And look, it's almost unanimous that it's going to turn colder mid to late March. And I don't want you to look at these specific numbers really, right? 60s for highs, 40s for lows. At this range, ensembles almost always underestimate cold air. My suspicion is somewhere in that March 12th and beyond stretch, we could have another frost threat. We could have a day where highs are in the 50s and lows are in the 30s. That is not explicitly shown in this data, nor would it be. It's just not the way it works with an ensemble approach. But clearly, some of these ensemble members, if you look down, this is called a box and whisker plot, that little gray rectangle and the blue thing sticking out of it. If you go down to the coldest 10% of these ensembles, so we'll call those the bass singers, right? They're the lowest. Some of them are down below 35 degrees, right? The lowest 10% of those singers are singing a note that is below 35 degrees on the morning of March 13th, which would indicate some possibility of frost. So it's not a huge chance, but it's certainly not zero. And again, at this range, ensembles tend to underestimate cold. So there you go. That's the Euro Ensemble. This is the GFS Ensemble. Let me blow it up, make it bigger. Same exact concept, right? It is really, really warm until about March the 11th, and then after that it turns colder. I will point out the GFS Ensemble mean gets us down into the low 40s. It is a touch colder than the Euro Ensemble, but same principle applies here. When you are looking at an ensemble, understand that when you have a weather setup that is unusual statistically, ensembles are going to tend to flatten that out a little bit and underestimate it. We've seen that a million times. We know that as meteorologists. So when we show you, when you see ensemble data, you're not looking for specific numbers. You're looking for themes and ideas. And we go from a high in the 80s to a high in the 60s. So the idea there is it turns colder, right? Right. Okay. Hey, thanks so much for hanging out with me for these 15 minutes of fun. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Be sure to watch my updates tonight, WSFA 12 News at 5, 6, and 10 o'clock. Watch the WSFA First Alert weather app for updates as well. And I'll have a fresh weather discussion posted on WSFA.com this afternoon as well. And along with meteorologist Amanda Kern, Nick Gunner as well. So have a great day. Take care. See